Well, my name's Nina Prieur, and I'm the dramaturg for the Beatification of Area Boy. I'm also on the faculty here in theater studies. I've really enjoyed on this play being actively involved in the rehearsal process as well as doing the research before the production. Often dramaturgs will do a lot of research before rehearsals begin, in and around the textual analysis of the play, looking at the larger themes, different work on the historical, social, political context of a work. And so I enjoyed doing a lot of that research in the summer. And then had this wonderful opportunity to sit around the table with Jody and the very large, wonderful cast that we have with the playwright Wole Soyinka in the room. And so a lot of my work as the dramaturg then became about what kinds of questions we might want to ask of Soyinka and how I might do research that would supplement the expertise he was already bringing to the table. And since then I've been coming to rehearsals and keeping an eye on how the text is being realized in production. We have a special challenge with this text because it's written in, so much of it is written in Pidgin, which is English, sort of a patois. And so we've had a lot of work to do in both learning that language ourselves and then getting that language communicated to an audience who we imagine probably won't have former knowledge of that language. Something that got me first off when Jody McAuliffe, the director, first mentioned the production to me, which was, I guess, back in March or April of last year, was that the play is set in Lagos, Nigeria, and that historical, social, political context is very, very important to this play, which is a very controversial work that up until this year has never been even performed in its home country because of the controversy around it. And yet, in order to represent a lot of the conditions in Lagos on stage here, she and Bill Nolan, a videographer, were taking a trip to Detroit, Michigan to do the filming because they saw so many resonances between what was happening in the city of Lagos, as represented in the play, and what's been happening here in the United States in cities like Detroit. So that focus on our urban cores, not only in what you might think of as a traditionally third world context like Lagos, but also finding where and how similar politics and economics of the third world are in operation in cities in the United States was very interesting to me before I ever even read the play. And then on reading the play and doing some more research, talking with Soyinka, that aspect of this production in relation to the text of the play has become really interesting to me and I know to the director as well. The play begins with this image of dawn, and it's the most spectacular, beautiful dawn that the people in Lagos have ever seen. And one of the characters believes it's a miracle. That this is a sort of a salvation for the poor and oppressed people in the city. And not to spoiler alert here, but at the end or by later in the play we learn that that burst of color that looks like a glorious sunrise is in fact the residue of flames coming up from a settlement, a slum, in Lagos that has been burned to the ground with the people living there still inside, still living and having to run for their lives. It was very powerful for me reading the play, seeing that image realized and dealt with. It was even more powerful when I went to research the play and learned that the Morocco settlement, which is written about in the play, did in fact exist and was in fact burned to the ground with no warning. And a million people were sent grabbing whatever possessions they could as they ran for their lives. And that area in Morocco was destroyed in order to build luxury living conditions for the wealthy. And I have been looking in my own research about urban development issues, mostly in the United States, and seeing some pretty horrible stories about communities dislocated and displaced in order to build playgrounds for the wealthy in our city's urban cores and also surrounding areas. And so seeing that enacted in such a brutal way in Lagos and in the play certainly resonates very strongly with me. And I think because of the way the play is the production is exploring these connections across Detroit and Lagos. There's something about doing the Beatification of Area Boy, Lagosian kaleidoscope here in the United States. Here in Durham as well, I've just moved here, but was struck from the moment I got here by how much activity there is in revitalizing our own core in downtown Durham. And I've certainly been enjoying the luxury condos that are emerging from what used to be abandoned warehouses, the cafes, the restaurants, the new performing arts center. And I think Durham is doing a lot of work to be responsible in its development, but there are some very real concerns as gated communities spring up in places where long histories of people who are of a lower economic bracket, often people of color, have lived here in the Durham and also Greater Triangle area. And those are questions, I think, that even though this play doesn't speak directly to Durham, are brought up in the play, and that I hope people will think about in and around this production.